At first glance, South Korea looks like one of the great success stories of the modern world. A country transformed within just a few generations into a global leader in technology, entertainment, fashion, education, and innovation. Millions of people around the world admire Korean culture. The music, the films, the discipline, the efficiency, the ambition. At night, cities like Seoul glow with neon lights, crowded cafes, luxury storefronts, fast-moving trains, and endless movement. Everything appears modern, organized, and alive with momentum. But beneath that success, many younger Koreans began using a phrase that reveals a very different emotional reality. They call modern life hell Joseon. The term references Korea's historical Joseon dynasty, a period associated with rigid hierarchy, intense social expectations, and limited social mobility. Today, younger generations use the phrase to describe a feeling that life has become overwhelmingly competitive, financially exhausting, emotionally draining, and increasingly disconnected from simple human fulfillment. This is not a story about failure. In many ways, South Korea achieved what many nations dream of achieving. The deeper question is what happens when a society becomes extraordinarily advanced while many younger people quietly begin feeling overwhelmed by the pressure required to keep up with it. Late at night, convenience stores remain filled with students reviewing notes before another morning of exams. Office towers stay illuminated long after midnight. Apartment prices continue rising while younger workers wonder whether stability is moving farther away instead of closer. Around the world, many people recognize pieces of this experience in their own lives. Rising living costs, constant comparison, fear of falling behind, pressure to optimize every part of life at the same time. The reason Hell Joseon resonates so strongly online is because it reflects a larger modern reality many societies are now trying to navigate. This audio is not about criticizing South Korea. It is about understanding how intense pressure shapes people psychologically, why younger generations are rethinking traditional ideas of success, and what practical lessons anyone can learn about protecting mental clarity, emotional balance, and meaningful human connection in a world that constantly demands more. For many young Koreans, the pressure begins early through education. South Korea has one of the most competitive academic environments in the world, and educational achievement is often viewed as the gateway to future opportunity, financial stability, and social mobility. Students spend years preparing for major exams that can heavily influence university admissions and long-term career prospects. In neighborhoods across the country, it is common to see teenagers leaving regular school only to continue studying late into the evening at private academies known as hagwons. Near midnight, subway stations are still filled with students carrying heavy backpacks, reviewing notes under fluorescent lights while scrolling through schedules for the next day. Some grab instant meals from convenience stores before returning home to sleep only a few hours before starting again. For many families, this intense effort comes from genuine care and sacrifice. Parents want their children to succeed in an increasingly competitive economy. Students themselves often work extraordinarily hard because they understand how much their families invested in their future. But over time, non-stop performance pressure can begin affecting how people see themselves. A score slowly becomes more than a score. A rejection letter becomes more than disappointment. Falling behind starts feeling personal. Some students quietly begin associating rest with guilt because there is always another exam, another comparison, another expectation waiting ahead. The stress often comes not from one dramatic moment, but from accumulation. Small pressures repeated consistently over many years. And what makes this conversation important globally is that people outside Korea increasingly recognize similar patterns in their own societies. Young people around the world now feel pressure to optimize nearly everything at once: education, careers, finances, appearance, relationships, productivity, and public image. Technology intensifies this because comparison no longer stays local. Through social media, people constantly consume carefully edited versions of other people's lives. Expensive apartments, promotions, luxury vacations, perfect relationships, visible achievement. Over time, many individuals quietly begin feeling as though everyone else is moving faster than they are. One of the most important lessons from the Joseon discussion is understanding how dangerous non-stop comparison can become psychologically. Ambition itself is not unhealthy. Discipline is not unhealthy. Problems begin when people connect their entire identity to external achievement without creating emotional boundaries. Some individuals spend so much time pursuing socially approved milestones that they never stop to ask whether those goals actually align with the kind of life they want emotionally. A person can be highly productive while quietly becoming mentally exhausted at the same time. This is why self-awareness matters as much as hard work. Learning how to pause, reflect, and evaluate what genuinely creates meaning is becoming one of the most valuable skills in modern life. Because without that awareness, people can spend years chasing success while slowly losing connection to themselves in the process. Another major reason the phrase Joseon became widely discussed is the financial pressure many younger Koreans experience entering adulthood. South Korea developed rapidly within just a few generations, creating extraordinary economic growth and dramatically improving living standards. But rapid development also created rising expectations around career success, housing, lifestyle, and financial stability. In cities like Seoul, housing prices have increased to levels that make ownership feel distant or unrealistic for many younger workers. Rent consumes large portions of income, especially for people early in their careers. At the same time, workplace competition remains intense. In some business districts, office buildings stay illuminated deep into the night while employees continue working long after standard hours have ended. Early morning trains fill with exhausted commuters scrolling through messages before another demanding workday begins. On the surface, city life may still look energetic and exciting. Cafes remain crowded late into the evening. New luxury buildings continue rising across the skyline. Restaurants stay busy. Fashion districts remain full of activity. Yet underneath that movement, many younger people quietly wonder whether the traditional path toward stability still works the way previous generations expected. This uncertainty affects more than finances. It also changes how people think about relationships, family, and long-term planning. Some younger Koreans openly say they have delayed dating, marriage, or having children because they do not feel emotionally or financially prepared. Others simply want more freedom to focus on personal growth, travel, creativity, or flexibility instead of immediately entering traditional social expectations. What makes this conversation emotionally important is that these decisions are rarely simple or cynical. Many younger people still value relationships, family, and meaningful connection deeply. But modern pressure can make balancing emotional well-being with financial survival increasingly difficult. This is one reason the Joseon discussion resonates far beyond Korea itself. Across many developed countries, younger generations are asking similar questions. Does non-stop work automatically create a meaningful quality of life? Is visible success always worth the emotional cost required to maintain it? What kind of life actually feels sustainable long-term? More people are beginning to prioritize work-life balance, mental health, flexibility, and emotional stability differently than previous generations did. That does not mean younger people lack ambition. In many cases, they are simply becoming more aware of the psychological consequences of living in constant comparison and pressure without boundaries. One practical lesson from this discussion is the importance of separating financial reality from status pressure. Modern culture encourages people to compare lifestyles constantly, but sustainable well-being usually comes from stability rather than appearance. Many people quietly exhaust themselves trying to maintain images that do not actually improve their emotional quality of life. Learning how to make decisions based on personal values instead of public expectations can reduce enormous stress over time. In highly competitive environments, protecting mental clarity often requires intentionally simplifying parts of life instead of endlessly escalating pressure in every direction. One of the most interesting aspects of the Joseon conversation is how openly younger Koreans discuss emotional burnout, identity, and social pressure online. In previous generations, many people kept these frustrations private. Today, younger individuals across the world are increasingly willing to speak openly about anxiety, loneliness, exhaustion, and uncertainty about the future. In South Korea, online discussions surrounding work culture, education pressure, beauty standards, and social expectations became part of a much larger cultural reflection about what modern success should actually look like. South Korea is internationally known for high standards in many areas of life. Professionalism, appearance, education, efficiency, and achievement are often emphasized strongly within society. Many positive qualities come from this culture as well: discipline, resilience, strong work ethic, and respect for effort. But high standards can also create emotional fatigue when people begin feeling that every part of life is constantly being evaluated. Some younger Koreans describe pressure not only to succeed professionally, but also to maintain polished appearances, competitive resumes, active social lives, and visible signs of personal progress. Over time, constant self-monitoring quietly drains emotional energy. And social media has intensified this experience globally. People now spend hours every day consuming highly curated images of success from thousands of strangers online. One person posts career achievements. Another posts luxury travel. Another posts expensive apartments, designer fashion, or seemingly perfect relationships. Eventually, many individuals stop observing these images casually and begin measuring themselves against them automatically. This creates a dangerous habit where satisfaction becomes dependent on comparison rather than personal growth. One reason this topic matters so much is because it encourages a healthier and more important question: what actually creates a meaningful life long term? Research consistently shows that human well-being depends heavily on factors such as emotional stability, supportive relationships, physical health, purpose, rest, and a sense of control over one's own life. Yet modern societies often reward visibility and performance more than internal well-being. This creates situations where people appear successful externally while quietly feeling overwhelmed internally. One of the most valuable psychological skills people can develop today is learning how to protect attention intentionally. Attention is one of the most important resources human beings have, and modern systems compete aggressively for it every day. News cycles, social media platforms, advertising, productivity culture, and comparison-driven environments constantly pull people toward overstimulation. Without boundaries, many individuals become mentally exhausted without fully understanding why. Simple habits such as limiting unnecessary comparison, creating quiet time away from digital noise, maintaining supportive relationships, prioritizing physical health, and regularly reflecting on personal values can make enormous differences psychologically over time. These habits may sound small, but in high-pressure environments they become forms of emotional resilience. The deeper lesson behind Joseon is not to reject ambition or progress. It is to recognize that sustainable success requires emotional balance alongside achievement. Despite the seriousness of these conversations, one of the most encouraging developments in South Korea is that many younger people are actively redefining what they want their lives to look like. Rather than automatically accepting every traditional expectation, many are becoming more intentional about work, relationships, health, and personal priorities. Some pursue careers with better work-life balance even if prestige is lower. Others focus more on experiences, friendships, creativity, flexibility, or personal freedom instead of constantly pursuing status-based goals. Conversations surrounding stress, burnout, and emotional well-being have also become more visible in recent years, especially among younger generations willing to discuss mental health more openly than before. This shift matters because awareness is often the first step toward healthier social change. Every generation inherits assumptions about success, and eventually people begin evaluating whether those assumptions still create sustainable lives. In South Korea, many younger individuals are now asking practical questions about balance. What kind of work culture allows people to remain productive without becoming emotionally depleted? What kind of city life creates both opportunity and quality of life? What kind of education system encourages excellence without overwhelming students psychologically? These are not only Korean questions anymore. They are increasingly global questions. One reason audiences connect so strongly with this topic is because it reflects a larger modern challenge: how to remain ambitious without becoming consumed by pressure. The healthiest path is rarely complete withdrawal from responsibility, but it is also not non-stop obsession with achievement. Sustainable growth usually comes from balance. People tend to thrive most when they combine discipline with recovery, ambition with self-awareness, and productivity with meaningful human connection. One practical skill becoming increasingly important in modern life is learning how to define enough. Without personal boundaries, goals expand endlessly. More money. More recognition. More comparison. More productivity. More visibility. Yet people who never define enough often remain dissatisfied no matter how much progress they make. Another important lesson is understanding that identity should not depend entirely on external approval. Careers matter. Financial stability matters. Achievement matters. But human value extends beyond titles, income, and public perception. The individuals who often navigate modern pressure most effectively are not necessarily those with the highest status, but those who develop emotional clarity about what genuinely matters to them. They understand how to protect their time, maintain perspective, preserve relationships, and build lives that remain psychologically sustainable over many years instead of chasing constant validation. The Joseon discussion ultimately reveals something deeply human about modern society. Economic progress alone does not automatically create fulfillment. People also need purpose, rest, emotional stability, meaningful relationships, and time to recover mentally from constant stimulation. As technology, competition, and social pressure continue accelerating globally, the ability to maintain psychological balance may become one of the most valuable forms of resilience any person can develop. The phrase Joseon became powerful because it gave younger people language for emotions many had struggled to explain clearly. Pressure. Comparison. Exhaustion. Financial uncertainty. The feeling that modern life sometimes moves faster than human beings are emotionally prepared to handle. But the larger lesson behind this conversation is not pessimism. It is awareness. Around the world, societies are changing rapidly, and many people are beginning to rethink what success, stability, and fulfillment should actually mean in modern life. South Korea simply became one of the clearest examples of that discussion happening publicly. The most important takeaway is not to fear ambition or reject hard work. It is to build a version of success that remains emotionally sustainable over time. Protect your attention carefully. Avoid unnecessary comparison. Develop relationships that provide genuine support. Create boundaries between identity and achievement. Learn how to rest without guilt. And most importantly, define success intentionally instead of allowing society to define it completely for you. Because modern life may continue accelerating, competition may continue intensifying, and technology may continue demanding more attention from people every year. But human beings still need the same things they have always needed: purpose, connection, stability, rest, and the feeling that life is about more than simply keeping up.